昔、大衆娯楽の一つに、ろうそくの火の下で怪談を語る百物語怪談会というものがありました。
Hi, my name is Kaman Pun. Our guest today is an improvising chamber group dedicated to the performance of compositions inspired by Japanese cultural, artistic, and historical themes. We talked to the Kitsune Ensemble on Asia Talk. So, you call yourselves an improvising chamber group, and I see in a lot of the performances, Billy just conduct the beginning of the piece and then walk away. So, do you make up the rest yourselves, or how does it work?
Let the musicians answer that.
It's a little of both. We have guidelines to go by, but it's more of an improvisational chamber group. Chamber group being that Billy will write like kind of the roadmap for us to follow, but there's definite areas where we're allowed to improvise within the framework of the song. So a little bit of both. More jazz influence, the traditional Japanese music influence, and then more chamber classical influence from that. So it's kind of a good explanation for it, I guess.
Yeah, and one, if you were to just stick your head into a performance for a moment or just throw on a random track on our CD, it would not explain to you what the sound of the group is, because over an hour-long piece, it evolves through many, many different styles. So, if you throw on the first track, it's going to sound radically different from where the piece ends up.
So basically, you guys can just interpret whatever you write and play, it's like freestyle, kind of, within a certain restraint.
Depends on the tune. Some are fully composed, and some are fully improvised, and some are hybrids and go back and forth between those sections. So I try to blur the lines between composed and improvised sections, so you wouldn't be aware of those differences.
Mm-hmm. And is there a reason why you play Japanese music with Western instruments, like, the drum kit and then the clarinet and the bass and things like that?
Yeah, because basically we're American, I mean, they're Japanese by heritage, but we're working in New York, and I don't have any aspirations to try to do traditional Japanese music or to fulfill any expectations about what this music should sound like. So
I know for me personally, like I've always been interested in the Eastern instruments. I've always wanted to learn how to play the koto. I've always wanted to learn how to play shamisen flute, shakuhachi, all these different Japanese instruments. And but I think we get a pretty, not authentic, but like we're emulating that kind of Eastern sound with the Western instruments. So it's again like a nice hybrid.
Yeah. One thing that I'm trying to do with the Kitsune Ensemble, I'm trying to explore. I'm very interested in how cultures change once they intersect. New unexpected patterns of behavior. And it's like Spanglish. If you're like in Spanish Harlem, like the hybrid between Spanish and English, I find really fascinating, And so I think with the Kitsune Ensemble, it's sort of like not a clash of cultures, but throwing a lot of cultural influences into the pot and then not really knowing how it's going to turn out. And that I think that's most true to how cultures evolve. When someone from one country moves to another and has lived there for some years, like a new type of person is created. It's neither from that homeland or from the new country. But you just can't predict those patterns of behavior. And that's sort of why the Kitsune Ensemble's music, there's no real name for the genre. Like, I cannot tell you in a nutshell what type of music we play. It's its own thing.
How we interact, like how spontaneous it is, that's totally unique. That's not Japanese culture. So we use the language, the composition itself really like guide us to sound like the authentic Japanese sound. But how we play, how we interpret, how we interact as totally American side. So don't improvise like us in Japan. So I think that's really unique combination of it. And like, like to enforce like what Gary was saying, it's not just music that we get the motivation of music from. It could be movie, it could be scenery, it could be the memory that we grew up in Japan. So I think we as Japanese have a little bit advantage of how we can connect those composition to our memory source, like what we can picturize and how we can express musically with it. So I think that's our mission as Japanese to try to contribute those memories.
So I know your group is very different from all the other musical groups out there. How difficult was it? How challenging was it for you to get started?
Pretty, and it still is, just because we can't really be categorized neatly, and so many audience members they'll come out expecting, when they go to any concert, they expect certain things to be fenced in a certain way. I'm going to a classical concert, so I would be very surprised if they went from Beethoven to a Van Halen tune. Like I'd be like, that's pretty cool, but I would be very surprised. Most audience members, I think, really go in to any concert with preconceived notions. So if we start off with a very nice, beautiful piece, but I mean, my music is narrative-based. Like, I tell stories through music. So in any good story, conflict is introduced, and you go into unexpected territory. And that journey is what I'm interested in, but it can be daunting to some audience members or listeners of the CD, thinking, wow, I really love that beautiful folkloric sounding tune in the beginning, but 50 minutes into it, you're playing really aggressive, free improvisation. So just because we can't be pigeonholed, I think that makes booking, promoting the group a little difficult, but I think the challenge is worth it, because ultimately there's an audience for music that's that defies categorization.